Alright, so hey guys, welcome to another Warframe video, and since we got a new augment for Nova, I thought I would finally revise my Slowa setup that's been pretty much the same for about a year, and I'm quite pleased with how it turned out. It can survive pretty much anything unless you go out and face tank multiple corpus techs in a sortie, because their DPS is just too damn high, and they will tear any Warframe to shreds regardless of how tanky it is, and it's just as good at priming enemies with molecular prime as many other Slowa setup that I've put together so far. So let's check it out. Now I don't remember what the actual polarization of the frame is anymore because it's been too long since I put on the Forma, but for the aura I'm using Rifle Amp, though ideally I would want to run Energy Siphon or Corrosive Projection, and the reason I'm running Rifle Amp is because I want to have a V polarity in the aura slot so that I can run Power Donation for my Speed Nova setup. Then to maximize the Slowa enemies from Molecular Prime, I am running Power Drift and Intensify for a grand total of 145% power strength, which is the maximum for the slow, though not for the damage of Molecular Prime, and we followed that up with Primed Continuity, Narrow-Minded and Constitution, and this has two benefits for this build. Number one, it increases the number of null stars you get, which is very important because those grant you a ton of damage reduction, and number two, it increases the duration of the way from Molecular Prime, so it will travel farther. Then, since this build has a ton of layered defenses, which is what I like personally, but doesn't have a ton of health, I decided to use Vitality to bump the health pool up by quite a bit, and I followed that up by Streamline to make Molecular Prime a little bit cheaper. However, this one is not entirely necessary, and it's actually better to run Rage or Hunter Adrenaline if you're doing high level content and you're taking a lot of damage. Next up is the brand new Molecular Fission augment, which will restore 2 null stars for Nova's first ability when you kill an enemy that's been primed by Molecular Prime, her fourth ability. And the final mod on the menu is Adaptation, which slowly makes you more resistant as you take different types of damage. And just to completely overkill the beefiness of this setup, I am also running Arcane Guardian, which has a chance to give you some bonus flat armor when you get hit, which stacks really well with all the other defenses, and Arcane Grates, which also has a chance to trigger upon you getting hit, but this one will regenerate a portion of your health instead. Though Arcane Grates is very expensive, it's one of the most expensive arcanes in the game, so a good substitute for that, and a much cheaper substitute, would be Arcane Victory, which has a similar effect, but instead of triggering upon you taking damage, it triggers when you headshot an enemy, which with this setup is actually very easy to do because once you prime an enemy, they'll be slowed down by 75%, so headshotting them is very easy. Now, as I've mentioned at the beginning, I'm quite pleased with how this build turned out because it is very tanky while still being a slow Nova. And it's not too power hungry either. I'm usually able to sustain it completely by just using the energy dash from the Xenotic Focus School and picking up an energy orb here and there. So overall the build just plays really well, it feels good, and it does what it's supposed to do while also being pretty tanky. And that's something that I always try to do with my setups. I make a build that does what it's supposed to do, and then I squeeze in as much playability and quality of life as possible without compromising the thing that it was supposed to do in the first place. And I know some people don't like that, and I get shouted at every time I make a Warframe build, but that's just how I like to do builds. I don't want to make builds that are great for simulacrum showcases but feel like complete and utter ass when you actually play the game with them. And that's pretty much all there is to say about this build. It's just a very pleasant slow Nova setup that's a lot of fun to play, it's fairly efficient, and it's not gonna die on you even if you take it into a sortie. Though it does require some fairly advanced mods, so it's definitely not the best thing for newer players. And as far as the Forma setup is concerned, I think the best way to do it is to simply put on all the mods, and if they don't fit, you start to Forma for the slots where you have the most expensive mods, and you do that until all the mods fit. That's in my opinion the best way to Forma stuff, unless you want a lot of different setups, at which point you kind of have to look at all the mods you're using on all the setups and kind of pick the ones that have the same polarity and polarize those first. But anyway, I think that's enough rambling for today, so I thank you very much for watching as always guys. I hope you've enjoyed the video and you will enjoy this build as well, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.
Song of sons and daughters by the heart of who we are, making peace to build a future strong, united.